Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. Umar bought a silk cloak from the market, took it to Allah's Messenger peace be upon him and said, O Allah's Messenger peace be upon him. Take it and adorn yourself with it during the Eid and when the delegations visit you. Allah's Messenger peace be upon him replied, This dress is for those who have no share in the hereafter. After a long period Allah's Messenger peace be upon him sent to Umar a cloak of silk brocade. Umar came to Allah's Messenger peace be upon him with the cloak and said, O Allah's Messenger peace be upon him. You said that this dress was for those who had no share in the hereafter, yet you have sent me this cloak. Allah's Messenger peace be upon him said to him, Sell it and fulfill your needs by it. Narrated by Aisha. Allah's Messenger peace be upon him came to my house while two girls were singing beside me the songs of Bu'ath, a story about the war between the two tribes of the Ansar, the Hazraj and the Aous, before Islam. The Prophet peace be upon him lay down and turned his face to the other side. Then Abu Bakr came and spoke to me harshly saying, Musical instruments of Satan near the Prophet? Allah's Messenger peace be upon him turned his face towards him and said, Leave them. When Abu Bakr became inattentive, I signaled to those girls to go out and they left. It was the day of Eid, and the black people were playing with shields and spears, so either I requested the Prophet peace be upon him or he asked me whether I would like to see the display. I replied in the affirmative. Then the Prophet peace be upon him made me stand behind him and my cheek was touching his cheek and he was saying, Carry on. O Bani Arfida, till I got tired. The Prophet peace be upon him asked me, Are you satisfied, is that sufficient for you? I replied in the affirmative and he told me to leave. Narrated by Al-Bara. I heard the Prophet peace be upon him delivering a khutbah saying, The first thing to be done on this day, first day of Eid al-Adha, is to pray, and after returning from the prayer we slaughter our sacrifices in the name of Allah, and whoever does so, he acted according to our Sunnah traditions. Narrated by Aisha. Abu Bakr came to my house while two small Ansari girls were singing beside me the stories of the Ansar concerning the day of Bu'ath. And they were not singers. Abu Bakr said protestingly, Musical instruments of Satan in the house of Allah's Messenger. It happened on the Eid day and Allah's Messenger peace be upon him said, O Abu Bakr! There is an Eid for every nation and this is our Eid. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. Allah's Messenger peace be upon him never proceeded, for the prayer, on the day of Eid al-Fitr unless he had eaten some dates. Anas also narrated, the Prophet peace be upon him used to eat odd number of dates. Narrated by Anas. The Prophet peace be upon him said, Whoever slaughtered his sacrifice before the Eid prayer, should slaughter again. A man stood up and said, This is the day on which one has desire for meat, and he mentioned something about his neighbors. It seemed that the Prophet peace be upon him believed him. Then the same man added, I have a young she-goat which is dearer to me than the meat of two sheep. The Prophet peace be upon him permitted him to slaughter it as a sacrifice. I do not know whether that permission was valid only for him or for others as well. Narrated by Al-Bara bin Azib. The Prophet peace be upon him delivered the khutbah after offering the prayer on the day of Nahr and said, Whoever offers the prayer like us and slaughters like us then his nashuk, sacrifice, will be accepted by Allah. And whoever slaughters his sacrifice before the Eid prayer then he has not done the sacrifice. Abi Burda bin Nayar, the uncle of Al-Bara said, O Allah's Messenger peace be upon him. I have slaughtered my sheep before the Eid prayer and I thought today as a day of eating and drinking, not alcoholic drinks, and I liked that my sheep should be the first to be slaughtered in my house. So slaughtered my sheep and took my food before coming for the prayer. The Prophet peace be upon him said, the sheep which you have slaughtered is just mutton, not an ashuk. He, Abu Burda, said, O Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, I have a young she-goat which is dearer to me than 2 sheep. Will that be sufficient as an ashuk on my behalf? The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Yes, it will be sufficient for you, but it will not be sufficient, as an ashuk, for anyone else after you. Narrated by Abu Said al-Khudri. The Prophet, peace be upon him, used to proceed to the musalla on the days of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. The first thing to begin with was the prayer, and after that he would stand in front of the people and the people would keep sitting in their rows. Then he would preach to them, advise them, and give them orders, khutbah. And after that, if he wished to send an army for an expedition, he would do so, or if he wanted to give an order, he would do so, and then depart. The people followed this tradition till I went out with Marwan, the governor of Medina, for the prayer of Eid al-Adha or Eid al-Fitr. When we reached the musalla, there was a pulpit made by Kathir bin As-Salt. Marwan wanted to get up on that pulpit before the prayer. I got hold of his clothes, but he pulled them and ascended the pulpit and delivered the khutbah before the prayer. I said to him, By Allah, you have changed the Prophet's tradition. He replied, O Abu Said, gone is that which you know. I said, By Allah, what I know is better than what I do not know. Marwan said, People do not sit to listen to our khutbah after the prayer, so I delivered the khutbah before the prayer. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, used to offer the prayer of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr and then deliver the khutbah after the prayer. Narrated by Ibn Jurayj. Atta said, Jabir bin Abdullah said, the Prophet, peace be upon him, went out on the day of Eid al-Fitr and offered the prayer before delivering the khutbah. Atta told me that during the early days of Ibn Zubayr, Ibn Abbas had sent a message to him telling him that the adhan for the Eid prayer was never pronounced in the lifetime of Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, and the khutbah used to be delivered after the prayer. Atta told me that Ibn Abbas and Jabir bin Abdullah had said, there was no adhan for the prayer of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Atta said, I heard Jabir bin Abdullah saying, the Prophet, peace be upon him, stood up and started with the prayer, and after it he delivered the khutbah. When the Prophet of Allah, peace be upon him, finished the khutbah, he went to the women and preached to them, while he was leaning on Bilal's hand. Bilal was spreading his garment and the ladies were putting alms in it. I said to Atta, do you think it incumbent upon an imam to go to the women and preach to them after finishing the prayer and khutbah? Atta said, no doubt it is incumbent on imams to do so, and why should they not do so? Narrated by Ibn Jurayj. Atta said, Jabir bin Abdullah said, the Prophet, peace be upon him, went out on the day of Eid al-Fitr and offered the prayer before delivering the khutbah. Atta told me that during the early days of Ibn Zubayr, Ibn Abbas had sent a message to him telling him that the adhan for the Eid prayer was never pronounced in the lifetime of Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, and the khutbah used to be delivered after the prayer. Atta told me that Ibn Abbas and Jabir bin Abdullah had said, there was no adhan for the prayer of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Atta said, I heard Jabir bin Abdullah saying, the Prophet, peace be upon him, stood up and started with the prayer, and after it he delivered the khutbah. When the Prophet of Allah, peace be upon him, finished the khutbah, he went to the women and preached to them, while he was leaning on Bilal's hand. Bilal was spreading his garment and the ladies were putting alms in it. I said to Atta, do you think it incumbent upon an imam to go to the women and preach to them after finishing the prayer and khutbah? Atta said, no doubt it is incumbent on imams to do so, and why should they not do so? Narrated by Ibn Abbas. I offered the Eid prayer with Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman and all of them offered the prayer before delivering the khutbah. Narrated by Ibn Umar. Allah's Messenger peace be upon him, Abu Bakr and Umar, used to offer the two Eid prayers before delivering the khutbah. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. The Prophet peace be upon him offered a 2 Eid prayer on the day of Eid al-Fitr and he did not pray before or after it. Then he went towards women along with Bilal and ordered them to pay alms, and so they started giving their earrings and necklaces, in charity. Narrated by Al-Bara bin Azib. The Prophet peace be upon him said, the first thing that we should do on this day of ours is to pray and then return to slaughter the sacrifice. So anyone who does so, he acted according to our Sunnah tradition, and whoever slaughtered the sacrifice before the prayer, it was just meat which he presented to his family and would not be considered as nashuk. A person from the Ansar named Abu Burda bin Nayyar said, O Allah's Messenger peace be upon him, I slaughtered the nashuk, before the prayer, but I have a young she-goat which is better than an older sheep. The Prophet peace be upon him said, sacrifice it in lieu of the first, but it will be not sufficient, as a sacrifice, for anybody else after you. Narrated by Said bin Jubair. I was with Ibn Umar when a spear had pierced the sole of his foot and his foot stuck to the paddle of the saddle, and I got down and pulled his foot out, and that happened in Mina. Al-Hajjaj got the news and came to inquire about his health and said, Alas! If we could only know the man who wounded you. Ibn Umar said, You are the one who wounded me. Al-Hajjaj said, How is that? Ibn Umar said, You have allowed the arms to be carried on a day on which nobody used to carry them, and you allowed arms to be carried in the haram even though it was not allowed before. Narrated by Said bin Amr bin Said bin Aalaas. Al-Hajjaj went to Ibn Umar while I was present there. Al-Hajjaj asked Ibn Umar, How are you? Ibn Umar replied, I am all right. Al-Hajjaj asked, Who wounded you? Ibn Umar replied, The person who allowed arms to be carried on the day on which it was forbidden to carry them. He meant Al-Hajjaj. Narrated by Al-Bara. The Prophet peace be upon him delivered the khutbah on the day of Nahr, Eid al-Adha, and said, The first thing we should do on this day of ours is to pray and then return and slaughter our sacrifices. So anyone who does so, he acted according to our sunnah, and whoever slaughtered before the prayer, then it was just meat that he offered to his family and would not be considered as a sacrifice in any way. My uncle Abu Burda bin Nayyar got up and said, O Allah's Messenger peace be upon him, I slaughtered the sacrifice before the prayer, but I have a young she-goat which is better than an older sheep. The Prophet peace be upon him said, Slaughter it in lieu of the first, and such a goat will not be considered as a sacrifice for anybody else after you. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. The Prophet peace be upon him said, No good deeds done on other days are superior to those done on these, first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. Then some companions of the Prophet peace be upon him said, Not even jihad. He replied, Not even jihad, except that of a man who does it by putting himself and his property in danger, for Allah's sake, and does not return with any of those things. Narrated by Muhammad bin Abi Bakr al-Thaqafi. While we were going from Mina to Arafat, I asked Anas bin Malik, about Talbiyah, How did you use to say Talbiyah in the company of the Prophet? Anas said, People used to say Talbiyah and their saying was not objected to, and they used to say Takbir and that was not objected to either. Narrated by Ahmadiyya. We used to be ordered to come out on the day of Eid and even bring out the virgin girls from their houses, and menstruating women, so that they might stand behind the men, and say Takbir along with them, and invoke Allah along with them, and hope for the blessings of that day, and for purification from sins. Narrated by Ibn Umar. On the day of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, a spear used to be planted in front of the Prophet, as a sutra for the prayer, and then he would pray. Narrated by Ibn Umar. The Prophet peace be upon him used to proceed to the musalla, and an anaza used to be carried before him, and planted in the musalla in front of him, and he would pray facing it, as a sutra. Narrated by Muhammad. Atiyah said, our Prophet ordered us to come out, on Eid day, with the mature girls, and the virgins staying in seclusion. Hafsa narrated the above-mentioned hadith and added, the mature girls or virgins staying in seclusion, but the menstruating women had to keep away from the musalla. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. In my boyhood, I went out with the Prophet peace be upon him on the day of Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha. The Prophet peace be upon him prayed and then delivered the khutbah, and then went towards the women, preached and advised them and ordered them to give alms. Narrated by Al-Bara. The Prophet peace be upon him went towards al-Baqi, the graveyard at Medina, on the day of Eid al-Adha and offered a 2-rak'at prayer, of Eid al-Adha, and then faced us and said, on this day of ours, our first act of worship is the offering of prayer, and then we will return and slaughter the sacrifice, and whoever does this concords with our sunnah, and whoever slaughtered his sacrifice before that, before the prayer, then that was a thing which he prepared earlier for his family, and it would not be considered as an ashuk, sacrifice. A man stood up and said, O Allah's Messenger peace be upon him, I slaughtered the animal before the prayer, but I have a young she-goat which is better than an older sheep. The Prophet peace be upon him said to him, slaughter it. But a similar sacrifice will not be sufficient for anybody else after you. Narrated by Abdurrahman bin Abbas. Ibn Abbas was asked whether he had joined the Prophet peace be upon him in the Eid prayer. He said, yes. And I could not have joined him had I not been young. The Prophet peace be upon him came out, till he reached the mark which was near the house of Kathir bin As-Salt, offered the prayer, delivered the khutbah, and then went towards the women. Bilal was accompanying him. He preached to them and advised them and ordered them to give alms. I saw the women putting their ornaments with their outstretched hands into Bilal's garment. Then the Prophet peace be upon him along with Bilal returned home. Narrated by Ibn Jurayj. Atta told me that he had heard Jabir bin Abdullah saying, the Prophet peace be upon him stood up to offer the prayer of the Eid al-Fitr. He first offered the prayer and then delivered the khutbah. After finishing it he got down, from the pulpit, and went towards the women and advised them while he was leaning on Bilal's hand. Bilal was spreading out his garment where the women were putting their alms. I asked Atta whether it was the zakat of Eid al-Fitr. He said, no, it was just alms given at that time. Some lady put her finger ring and the others would do the same. I said, to Atta, do you think that it is incumbent upon the Imam to give advice to the women, on Eid day? He said, no doubt, it is incumbent upon the Imams to do so, and why should they not do so? Narrated by Ibn Abbas. I attained with the Prophet, Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman in the Eid al-Fitr prayers. They used to offer the prayer before the khutbah and then they used to deliver the khutbah afterwards. Once the Prophet peace be upon him came out for the Eid prayer as if I were just observing him waving to the people to sit down. He, then accompanied by Bilal, came crossing the rows till he reached the women. He recited the following verse. O Prophet! When the believing women come to you, pledging to you that they will neither associate anything with Allah in worship, nor steal, nor fornicate, nor kill their children, nor falsely attribute illegitimate children to their husbands, nor disobey you in what is right, then accept their pledge, and ask Allah to forgive them. Surely Allah is all-forgiving, most merciful. Surah 60 verse 12. After finishing the recitation he said, "O ladies! Are you fulfilling your covenant?" None except one woman said, "Yes." Hassan did not know who was that woman. The Prophet peace be upon him said, "Then give alms." Bilal spread his garment and said, "Keep on giving alms. Let my father and mother sacrifice their lives for you, ladies." So the ladies kept on putting their fatks, big rings, and other kinds of rings in Bilal's garment. Abdur Razak said, "Fatks is a big ring which used to be worn in the pre-Islamic period of ignorance." Narrated by Ayub. Hafsa bint Sirin said, "On Eid we used to forbid our girls to go out for Eid prayer. A lady came and stayed at the palace of Bani Khalaf and I went to her. She said, 'The husband of my sister took part in 12 holy battles along with the Prophet peace be upon him, and my sister was with her husband in 6 of them.' My sister said that they used to nurse the sick and treat the wounded. Once she asked, 'O Allah's Messenger peace be upon him, if a woman has no veil, is there any harm if she does not come out on Eid day?' The Prophet peace be upon him said, 'Her companion should let her share her veil with her, and the women should participate in the good deeds and in the religious gatherings of the believers.' Hafsa added, 'When Ahmadiyya came, I went to her and asked her, "Did you hear anything about so and so?" Ahmadiyya said, "Yes, let my father be sacrificed for the Prophet peace be upon him." And whenever she mentioned the name of the Prophet peace be upon him she always used to say, "Let my father be sacrificed for him." He said, "Virgin mature girls staying often screened," or said, "Mature girls and virgins staying often screened." Ayub is not sure as which was right, and menstruating women should come out on the Eid day. But the menstruating women should keep away from the musalla. And all the women should participate in the good deeds and in the religious gatherings of the believers. Hafsa said, "On that I said to Ahmadiyya, also those who are menstruating." Ahmadiyya replied, "Yes. Do they not present themselves at Arafat and elsewhere?" Narrated by Ahmadiyya. We were ordered to go out for Eid and also to take along with us the menstruating women, mature girls, and virgins staying in seclusion. Ibn On said, or mature virgins staying in seclusion. The menstruating women could present themselves at the religious gathering and invocation of Muslims but should keep away from their musalla. Narrated by Ibn Umar. The Prophet peace be upon him used to nahr or slaughter sacrifices at the musalla, on Eid al-Adha. Narrated by Al-Bara bin Azib. On the day of Nahr Allah's Messenger peace be upon him delivered the khutbah after the Eid prayer and said, "Anyone who prayed like us and slaughtered the sacrifice like we did then he acted according to our, nashuk, tradition of sacrificing, and whoever slaughtered the sacrifice before the prayer, then that was just mutton, not sacrifice." Abu Burda bin Nayyar stood up and said, "O Allah's Messenger peace be upon him, by Allah, I slaughtered my sacrifice before I offered the Eid prayer and thought that today was the day of eating and drinking, non-alcoholic drinks, and so I made haste in slaughtering and ate and also fed my family and neighbors." Allah's Messenger peace be upon him said, "That was just mutton, not a sacrifice." Then Abu Burda said, "I have a young she-goat and no doubt, it is better than 2 sheep. Will that be sufficient as a sacrifice for me?" The Prophet peace be upon him replied, "Yes. But it will not be sufficient for anyone else, as a sacrifice, after you." Narrated by Anas bin Malik. Allah's Messenger peace be upon him offered the prayer on the day of Nahr, and then delivered the khutbah, and ordered that whoever had slaughtered his sacrifice before the prayer should repeat it, that is, should slaughter another sacrifice. Then a person from the Ansar stood up and said, "O Allah's Messenger peace be upon him, because of my neighbors, he described them as being very needy or poor, I slaughtered before the prayer. I have a young she-goat which, in my opinion, is better than 2 sheep. The Prophet peace be upon him gave him the permission for slaughtering it as a sacrifice. Narrated by Jundab. On the day of Nahr the Prophet peace be upon him offered the prayer and delivered the khutbah and then slaughtered the sacrifice and said, anybody who slaughtered his sacrifice before the prayer should slaughter another animal in lieu of it, and the one who has not yet slaughtered should slaughter the sacrifice mentioning Allah's name on it. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah. On the day of Eid the Prophet peace be upon him used to return, after offering the Eid prayer, through a way different from that by which he went. Narrated by Urwa on the authority of Aisha. On the days of Mina, 11th, 12th, and 13th of Dhul Hijjah, Abu Bakr came to her while 2 young girls were beating the tambourine, and the Prophet peace be upon him was lying covered with his clothes. Abu Bakr scolded them and the Prophet peace be upon him uncovered his face and said to Abu Bakr, leave them, for these days are the days of Eid and the days of Mina. Aisha further said, once the Prophet peace be upon him was screening me and I was watching the display of black slaves in the mosque and Umar scolded them. The Prophet peace be upon him said, leave them. O Bani Arfida! Carry on, you are safe, protected. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. The Prophet peace be upon him went out, and offered a 2-rak'at prayer on the day of Eid al-Fitr, and did not offer any other prayer before or after it, and at that time Bilal was accompanying him.